There are moments in history when the world seems to teeter on the edge of eternity, when the mightiest of civilizations believe they can never fall. For centuries, the Romans looked upon their eternal city and saw it as the heart of the world, immovable, immortal. But what if that confidence was misplaced? What if the fall of Rome was not inevitable, but the result of a few critical mistakes, choices that could have rewritten the destiny of the West itself? Imagine a different Rome, a Rome that crushed its enemies, preserved its legions, and endured beyond the Middle Ages. To understand how that dream slipped away, we must return to the moment the eternal city first trembled, when the walls of Rome were breached and the unthinkable happened. When Visigoth warriors stormed through the gates in 410 AD, Rome, the city of emperors and triumphs, was sacked for the first time since the Celtic invasion nearly 800 years earlier. The proud empire that had once ruled continents was crumbling into dust. Its legions were thin shadows of their former glory, its coffers empty, and its senate paralyzed by corruption. By 476 AD, Romulus Augustulus, the final puppet emperor of the West, was deposed. The Western Roman Empire had fallen to the very tribes it once called barbarians, Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Vandals. And it would never rise again. The East, from its capital in Constantinople, would make desperate attempts to reclaim the lost lands, but even its victories were fleeting. Rome, the idea of Rome, had been wounded beyond repair. Yet its demise was not the result of one bad ruler or a single battle lost. The fall came from within, a long unraveling of power and vision. Many emperors had erred, but three in particular made decisions that sealed Rome's fate forever. The first was Tiberius. He made a mistake that Caesar never would have allowed. He failed to crush and conquer the Germanic tribes to the north. Where Caesar had subdued Gaul through relentless campaigns, Tiberius hesitated. He sent his brilliant general, Germanicus, on 3 expeditions into Germania, victories that could have changed history. But just when Germanicus stood on the edge of total conquest, Tiberius recalled him, jealous of his rising fame and fearful of his popularity among the legions. Germanicus was soon reassigned to the east, far from his loyal troops. There, he died under mysterious circumstances, poison, many believed, by order of Tiberius himself. Ancient historians like Tacitus and Cassius Dio whisper that fear, not strategy, drove the emperor's hand. In sparing Germania, Tiberius doomed Rome to centuries of northern invasion. Had he finished what Caesar began, had he brought the Germanic tribes into the Roman fold, the empire's northern frontier might have endured, and its heart might never have fallen to barbarian hands. Then came Nero, a name forever cursed in memory. He is often painted as one of Rome's worst emperors, though not always for the right reasons. Nero was indeed corrupt, cruel, and self-indulgent, but that, in truth, was nothing new in imperial Rome. His true sin was not madness, it was extravagance. While the city burned, whether by his order or by accident, he sang of Troy's destruction. Yet the real destruction came later, in the economy. To fund his monumental palaces and endless spectacles, Nero drained the treasury and began minting more coins, diluting the silver and destroying Rome's currency. This reckless inflation spiraled out of control, sparking decades of economic chaos. It weakened the empire's backbone, its army, its trade, its faith in leadership, and laid the groundwork for the catastrophic crisis of the 3rd century, when emperors rose and fell like waves, and Rome seemed ready to devour itself. The final blow came from Caracalla, whose mistake was made in the name of reform. In a bid to rescue Rome's economy, he granted citizenship to every free man within the empire's borders. On the surface, it seemed a masterstroke, an enormous new base of taxpayers, united under Roman law. But the unintended consequences were devastating. Until then, service in the Roman army had been one of the few paths to citizenship. A man could serve 25 years in the legions and, upon discharge, earn the sacred privileges of Roman life: the right to vote, to own property, to appeal to Roman law, and, most importantly, to be treated as more than a provincial subject. This system had bound the empire together with loyalty and purpose. Conquered peoples fought for Rome because they could become Rome. By erasing that distinction, Caracalla severed the emotional bond between Rome and its soldiers. Service lost its meaning. Recruitment plummeted. The legions, once the most disciplined fighting force on Earth, began to shrink. And while the barbarians multiplied beyond the Rhine and the Danube, Rome slowly ran out of men to hold the line. At its peak, during the First Punic War, Rome had been able to field nearly 700,000 soldiers, an astounding number for a population of only 5 to 7 million. But centuries later, under Constantine the Great, with more than 50 million subjects, the empire's total military strength had dwindled to just 600,000. Even with superior organization and training, Rome could no longer withstand the tidal wave of invasions that followed. Its last true victory came under Flavius Aetius, who rallied 30,000 Romans and 20,000 Germanic allies against Attila the Hun at the Battle of the Catalonian Plains. Against all odds, Aetius triumphed, but it was a victory born of desperation, not renewal. Rome had proven it still had courage, but not the numbers to endure. And so, the world's greatest empire died not from conquest, but from erosion, of loyalty, of leadership, of purpose. But what if it hadn't? What if a few decisions, just a few, had gone differently? Let's imagine another timeline. It is 4 BC. Lucius Caesar, the chosen heir of Augustus, has just died. Augustus, the architect of Rome's golden age, is left without an heir. In our history, he chose Tiberius, the cautious, jealous stepson who would one day doom the empire's frontier. But in this alternate world, Augustus makes a different choice. He chooses Germanicus, his young grandnephew, beloved by soldiers, adored by the people, the golden boy of Rome. Tiberius, spurned and embittered, retreats into exile on the island of Rhodes, fading from history. Germanicus ascends as the new prince of Rome, a leader of action and charisma, and his heir would be his brother Claudius, should he have no sons of his own. Under Germanicus, the early years of the empire unfold differently. When the Illyrian revolt breaks out, the young emperor and his co-general, Severus, crush the rebellion swiftly, securing the Balkans and earning triumphal honors in Rome. Then comes the disaster of Teutoburg Forest, the real-world nightmare where 3 Roman legions vanished in the German woods. In our history, Rome never truly recovered from that humiliation. But in this timeline, Augustus sends Germanicus himself, along with Claudius, to avenge the defeat. For 3 relentless years, Germanicus wages war across the Rhine, burning tribal villages, shattering alliances, and reclaiming Roman pride. With the support of the Marcomanni under their king Maroboduus, he finally subdues Germania, annexing the northern territories that had haunted Rome for generations. When he returns to the Eternal City, the people line the streets for his triumph, showering him with laurels. The Germanic frontier is secure, the legions loyal, and Rome's future rewritten. Perhaps in this world, Rome never falls. Perhaps the Eternal City remains eternal after all. History, after all, is fragile, a collection of human choices balanced on the edge of time. And sometimes, all it takes to change the fate of an empire is for one man to make a different choice. By 13 AD, Germanicus stood at the peak of his power. Augustus had granted him command over 8 legions, nearly 1/3 of Rome's entire military. No Roman since Caesar had held such might in his hands. But destiny would soon shift again. A year later, the great Augustus, the man who had forged an empire from civil war, was dead. As Rome mourned its founder, Germanicus began his journey home. The people met him with thunderous cheers, and within months he was crowned emperor. For half a year, he ruled from the heart of the capital, restoring order and hope to a restless empire. His brother Claudius, now a proven general, was reinforced with 4 more legions, bringing their combined strength to 75,000 hardened soldiers ready to carry Rome's eagles farther than ever before. When spring came, Germanicus returned to the Rhine to begin the campaign that would define his reign, the invasion of Germania. The plan was daring. Claudius would lead 6 legions north, striking the coastal tribes, while Germanicus himself drove east with 6 more through the southern forests. For a year, the Roman war machine burned through the frontier. Villages razed, resistance shattered, roads paved in conquest. Claudius mirrored his brother's brutality in the north. Across the river, Arminius, the same warrior who once destroyed 3 legions in Teutoburg, scrambled to rally the tribes. Yet by the time he gathered his scattered allies, the West had already been purged. Desperate, he launched 2 counter-offensives, but both were crushed. When the next spring arrived, Germanicus and Claudius advanced deep into Cherusci lands. The Battle of the Russi Plains became their masterpiece. Nearly 50,000 Germanic warriors were slain. Arminius escaped, but his world burned behind him. One by one, the tribes fell. Villages vanished, populations enslaved. Those who surrendered were spared, but those who resisted were erased. When the Vandals, seeking survival, betrayed Arminius and delivered him in chains to Germanicus, the war was finished. To replace fallen legionaries, Germanicus reinforced his and Claudius's armies with 3 fresh legions. He sent envoys throughout the forests with a simple message: submit to Rome or disappear. For 3 relentless years, the 2 brothers campaigned without mercy. The Burgundians were annihilated, the Lugi exterminated or sold into slavery, 400,000 dead by the war's end. Germanicus then drew Rome's new frontier along the Vistula River, envisioning the Carpathians as the next great defensive wall. Dacia would be his next prize. Claudius crushed one last rebellion among the mainland tribes, then built a new Roman city upon the ashes of Arminius's homeland, Nero Caesar, named for the emperor's son. Germanicus's victories transformed Germany from wild frontier into imperial heartland. To secure it, he poured wealth into reconstruction. Roads, forts, and colonies rose where forests once stood. He relocated 3 million Roman citizens northward, plebeians, craftsmen, and farmers, to dilute the tribal bloodlines and anchor Roman culture. It worked. Like Gaul before it, Germania became Roman in language, law, and loyalty. Trade routes expanded. Silver, iron, and grain flowed west. A region once feared now fed the empire. By 41 AD, Germanicus turned his gaze to Galicia and Dacia. He led the southern offensive himself, while his son Nero Caesar marched north. After several minor clashes, Germanicus met King Scarillo in battle, and crushed him utterly. Within 4 years, both Galicia and Dacia had fallen.
Prosperity followed conquest.
In 53 AD, he dispatched Nero Julius Caesar north again, this time to Scandia, the icy realm later called Scandinavia. For 5 years, the legions fought through frozen fjords and pine forests until Rome's standards rose even there. The region proved rich in metals and timber, and 3 new cities were founded, one, Agrippina, named for Germanicus' wife. When the emperor died in 71 AD, he left behind not ruin, but renaissance. He had expanded Rome's borders beyond any emperor before him, lifted millions from poverty, and built cities that gleamed with marble and pride. For the first time in centuries, the empire was not shrinking, but thriving. His son Nero Julius Caesar succeeded him and ruled for 12 years. Like a second Hadrian, he fortified the empire's frontiers, building strongholds from the Rhine to the Euphrates. His public works created thousands of new jobs and ensured stability. Under his rule, Rome commanded a standing army of over 1 million soldiers, many drawn from the northern provinces once thought barbaric. His heir, Britannicus, ascended in 86 AD and faced the last major Germanic uprising. For 3 years, the war raged, and though 1 Roman legion was annihilated, Britannicus ultimately triumphed. His reign saw the conquest of Britannia, adding yet another jewel to the imperial crown. He weakened the autonomy of local kings and replaced it with Roman governance, roads, aqueducts, and bridges laced across the island like veins of empire. When he died in 103 AD, Rome stood more connected and secure than ever before. He was succeeded by Gaius Crucius, who reigned only 2 years, but continued his father's policy of integration, appointing senators from among the barbarians, a gesture that bound the outer provinces closer to Rome. His son Vespanius took the throne soon after, launching new campaigns across Hibernia and the east. When the Parthians struck Rome's ally Armenia, Vespanius responded with fury. In 104 AD, he assembled 20 legions and marched east. The campaign was swift and brutal. He crushed the Parthian king Azorius I near Edessa, seized Ctesiphon, and entered Babylon to the cheers of its citizens, echoing Alexander centuries before him. But fate struck again. While securing Mesopotamia, Vespanius fell ill and died. The legions proclaimed his son Romulus Vespasianus Caesar emperor, and the young conqueror wasted no time. He annihilated the remaining Parthian pretenders, marched to Persepolis, and broke the ancient empire once and for all. Parthia became a Roman province, its treasures flowing westward. Romulus then marched to the easternmost seas ever reached by Alexander the Great, claiming them in the name of Rome. His banners flew from Gaul to Persia, from the North Sea to the Indian frontier. He returned victorious, only to face rebellion in Judea. The uprising was crushed utterly, and Romulus rebuilt Pella, Alexander's old capital, into a thriving trade hub for the Greek world. When he finally entered Rome, he did so in a triumph greater than any before him. The Senate named him Victor Orbis, conqueror of the world. But even at its zenith, cracks began to show. The empire was vast beyond comprehension, stretching from frozen fjords to desert sands. The Senate whispered of dividing it into 4 administrative realms: Germanic, Latin, Greek, and Persian, each ruled by its own consul, all answering to the emperor in Rome. Romulus resisted. He feared that such a division, meant to preserve unity, would one day tear the empire apart. And in that fear lay the seed of the next great chapter. For now, though, the Roman world stood united under one banner, one law, one emperor. a world where Germanicus's dream had not died, and where the eternal city truly lived up to its name. By 132 AD, the empire of Germanicus's descendants stood unchallenged, until the Bar Kokhba revolt erupted in Judea. Emperor Romulus Vespanius Caesar, already hailed as Victor Orbis, responded with ruthless precision. He crushed the rebellion utterly, razed Jerusalem to its foundations, and scattered the Jewish population across the empire. It was a grim echo of what our timeline's Emperor Hadrian would one day do, yet in this alternate Rome, it happened a century earlier, and it changed everything. From this devastation emerged the Primillian reforms, Romulus's radical attempt to ensure that no single culture could rise against Rome again. He relocated vast numbers of plebeians from every province, scattering them into distant lands to blend languages, customs, and bloodlines. The policy worked as intended. Rebellions became rare, and loyalty to the empire deepened. But it also carried unforeseen consequences. Not long after the mass resettlements, a mysterious sickness swept through the empire, the Antonine Plague, arriving nearly 30 years earlier than in our own timeline. It claimed over 30 million lives. Cities fell silent, legions dwindled, and trade nearly stopped. Yet out of the devastation came renewal. The scattered populations turned their eyes to the central Roman government for aid, and unity, through tragedy, was reborn. The empire emerged from the plague stronger, more centralized, more Roman than ever before. In the decades that followed, Romulus fortified the eastern frontiers with massive chains of forts and walls stretching from the Caucasus to the Indus, creating an impenetrable bulwark against Iranian, Scythian, and Indian raiders. When he finally passed, Rome entered what historians would later call its true golden age, an era of unparalleled expansion and peace. Under his successors, the empire's borders hardened into the shape of eternity. Nabatea was annexed, turning Arabia's caravan routes into Roman highways. The Crimean Peninsula was secured, uniting the last remnants of the Greek colonies under Roman law. The Caucasus Mountains became the empire's natural frontier in the northeast, fortified by a network of stone bastions stretching for thousands of miles. By the 2nd century's end, the Roman world stretched from the fjords of Norway to the plains of Pakistan. Occasional uprisings flared across this vast expanse, but each was swiftly extinguished by Rome's unmatched discipline. The Gothic migrations, which had once doomed our world's empire, never occurred here. The tribes that might have sparked them had been erased centuries earlier. Christianity, too, found a different destiny. Without the chaos of decline, it spread faster, carried along Rome's endless roads and trade routes. By the 3rd century, it had become the dominant religion of the empire. The old gods faded quietly, replaced by faith in resurrection and eternity, an idea that fit perfectly with the Roman dream itself. By the late 350s, the last pagan emperor had died, and nearly every senator, magistrate, and general was Christian. The Pope, still seated in Rome, rose not in opposition to emperors, but alongside them. His influence became vast, yet never rivaled imperial power. The two institutions grew as one. When regional patriarchs or bishops tried to create schisms, they were swiftly removed. There was no great schism here, no fracturing of the faith. Christianity, unified under Rome, spread across the known world, from the northern Rus to the coasts of India. It became not just a religion, but the spiritual arm of empire. Rome's first true test came in the 4th century with the arrival of the Huns. The war lasted more than 50 years, but Rome's vast armies and fortified walls turned the invasion into a slaughter. Hundreds of thousands of Huns were killed, and their people vanished from history. Its next challenge came in the 7th century, as the Muslim Caliphates surged westward. A Roman general named Flavius Varenus met their advance with 60,000 soldiers, 3 times the invading force, and annihilated them. For a century thereafter, Rome crushed every Arab offensive that followed. Then the Pope himself called for a crusade, not to reclaim the Holy Land, but to erase the invaders entirely. Emperor Aventulus, commanding nearly 300,000 legionaries, launched the largest campaign in human history. He swept through Mesopotamia and Arabia, sacking city after city, until finally reaching Mecca, which he obliterated. The caliphate crumbled in his wake. To commemorate his triumph, Aventulus founded the city of Aventulia near the Persian Gulf, a hub linking Rome's eastern provinces with India's trade routes. He restored Jerusalem to its former grandeur and returned to Rome as a living legend. Within a century, Islam was eradicated, and Arabia became the empire's newest province. Christianity stood alone, the unchallenged faith of mankind. As centuries passed, Rome's borders became the map of the world. New kingdoms and cultures rose beyond its walls, some allied, others rival, but all lived in its shadow. When Norse explorers reached North America in the 10th century, word traveled quickly across the imperial network. The emperor, intrigued, dispatched fleets to investigate. They called the new land Atlantis, believing it the lost world of myth reborn. Within 2 centuries, Rome had conquered and colonized the entire New World. Cities rose across the continents, trade routes linked the Atlantic and Pacific, and Rome was flooded with gold, silver, and furs. The merchant class exploded in wealth and influence, pushing the empire toward industrialization centuries ahead of our timeline. But even the eternal empire could not escape the final great test, the Mongol horde. From the east, they came like a storm, sweeping into Central Asia and driving Rome's legions back to the Zagros Mountains. For 12 long years, the empire bled. Cities burned, borders collapsed, and it seemed the ancient world was on the brink once again. Then came Constantinius IV, the Iron Emperor. He rallied 600,000 soldiers from across the world, Rome's largest army ever assembled, and met the Mongols in a war that lasted 20 years. The casualties were beyond measure, but in the end, the empire prevailed. Constantinius marched into the Mongol heartlands, razed their cities, and returned home victorious. The Senate named him Restitutor Orbis, the restorer of the world. From the ashes of that war came a new revolution. Determined never to face such peril again, Rome embraced the power of invention. By the mid-1400s, the Eternal Empire had begun to industrialize, centuries before any other civilization might have dared. Steam engines roared beside aqueducts, iron ships replaced galleys, and mechanical workshops lit the night skies of Rome, Alexandria, and Antioch. By the dawn of the modern age, Rome ruled not one continent, but 5. Australia, the East Indies, the Americas, all bore the eagle standard. Its fleets circled the globe, its missionaries preached to every shore, and its technology outpaced the rest of humanity by centuries. Through conquest, faith, and adaptation, the empire endured every storm that history could conjure. The world spoke Latin, prayed in churches built by Caesar's heirs, and measured time by Roman calendars. And so it was that in this timeline, the dream of Augustus never died. The eternal empire did not fall, it ascended. Imperium aeternum vivere. The eternal empire lives.